Итак, полтора часа. Сейчас по вопросам награждения премий Петра Кончаловского я приглашаю на сцену директора.
We would like to start our ceremony, our prize.
Дорогие друзья,
Dear friends, I'm extremely glad to tell you that the Pyotr Konchalovsky Foundation has made a decision to establish an annual prize, an annual award in the framework of our annual forum, Art and Reality. The prize would be awarded to those nominations that would correspond to the topic of the forum. Also, I'm glad to announce that in the framework of this particular forum, the Foundation has made a decision to award the worthiest participants. For that reason, the Foundation has allotted 400,000 rubles per nomination, which is 10,000 euros. And now I'm ready to show you the material incarnation of our prize, created by a sculptor, Denis Petrov. And it's the first time that I'm showing this prize to you, and I do so with great pleasure. I don't know what is that, but does anyone know? Do you have any suggestions? No, it's not. Any other opinions? Frankly speaking, I thought it would be like that. It's a paint dusting machine. It's a paint rubbing machine, which Pyotr Konchalovsky used in his creative work. And you can see this machine even on his paintings. It serves as a symbol, as an embodiment of Pyotr Konchalovsky's attitude towards his life and towards his profession. This served as a reason for us to make it a symbol, to make it a mascot of our prize. Denis tells me rightly that there is a signature of Pyotr Konchalovsky in the bottom of the pedestal. Also, I wanted to tell you that today, or in the very nearest future, we will publish on our website the rules of how to get the prize. And we're currently developing those rules, those clauses. This is a very serious and a very hard task, and we invite all the participants to take part in it. Again, I'm reminding you that it will be published on our website. We wanted to award and to assess the mastership, the skill of the artist, without singling out particular tendencies, trends, or schools of art. And our conference has shown that it's really hard to bring some criteria according to which we are able to assess art, but I hope that we'll be successful with this work because we have many supporters who are ready for a dialogue, and we hope that this dialogue will continue. Thank you very much. We start the ceremony. For announcing the nomination of the best qualification work of a graduate of an educational establishment related to the process of art criticism, we would like to invite Nina Getashvili from Peter Konchalovsky's foundation. Very briefly, I think that that Petrova Svetlana Nikolaevna will share her prize with her teacher. It's my advice to you, a very sincere advice. Share the prize with your teacher. Svetlana Nikolaevna, but the figure will remain in the hands of your graduate, in the hands of your students. Thank you very much. Thanks, Foundation, thanks the jury, thanks Nina. It's a great pleasure. I cannot even find proper words to express all my feelings. It's a great honor. To announce the winner in the nomination, the best web blog dedicated to the modern art problematics, we invite here the head of this prize department, Julia Kagansky.
This was a very difficult decision to make, and I don't know if you've been following along on Twitter on the hashtag ArtCrit, where something like close to 300 tweets have been made by conference participants, very chiefly Jennifer Francis and Claire Solery have been definitely chronicling everything that's happening, and also lots of people have been calling to vote on the internet to decide who the winner of this prize should be. And ultimately, it was a difficult decision because, you know, we had to evaluate not just the quality of the writing, but also the blog's use of the medium of the internet. And we deliberated and decided that the winner would be hyperallergic.com. Unfortunately, Krog, the editor-in-chief, had to leave earlier this morning to go back to the States, but Dennis will see him in Miami next week for Art Basel Miami and can deliver this wonderful award to him personally. I can speak on his behalf and say that I'm sure he's quite honored to have been invited to participate and also to receive this award. And I will say that the reason that I think ultimately Hyperallergic got the win is because they are quite experimental in their use of the web. They have an experimental Tumblr. They do things like Skype interviews with artists. They do things like podcasting, and I think it's very progressive and is going to set, you know, new models and potentially new standards for art criticism on the web. So,
Thank you, Julia. I believe I will not have problems with the airport security guards trying to deliver it to Iraq, to Miami. Yes, for now, yeah.
Для оглашения следующей
To announce the next nomination, the best large format work of art, we would like to invite on stage Nina Getashvili.
Это я просила, чтобы меня уже по очереди.
I tried to ask them not to call me by my patronymic, but this nomination is the only one which took so much time from the jury to elaborate, and we've made a very polyphonic decision. This prize will be shared, and it will be divided into two pieces, into two parts, and we would like to, by us I mean the Peter Konchalovsky Foundation, would like to award two publications. The first one being Center for Studying Russian Art and Culture under Kafosky Museum, University, Venice, for Dmitry Prigov's publication, for supporting and facilitating this publication, for all the work involved in this process. I'd like to invite Silvia Burini to approach me on stage, the director of this department.
Также мы от души
It's also a pleasure to celebrate Silvia with her recent promotion to the vice rector position.
Спасибо всем, это
Grazie. Thank you, everybody. It's a great honor. It's unexpected, though, but I think that this Center of Russian Art and Culture became very important for all of us, and we're just starting our work, and we hope to continue it together with Peter Konchalovsky Foundation. Thank you very much. Grazie.
И второе издание.
And the second publication, and maybe I was wrong in calling it only one publication, because actually it represents 3 publications. And we're awarding them for their regular efforts and for the work they do in publishing critical reviews, their academical, classical reviews. And this is Art in the Modern World publication, a publication under the Institute of the Theory of Art in Russia. And I invite here to stage Sofia Kudryavtseva, one of the authors of this wonderful publication.
Софья Владимировна Кудря.
Sofia Kudryavtseva, State Hermitage, St. Petersburg.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you so much. This prize is honorable and important, and it's a serious achievement. For that, I'd like to thank Peter Konchalovsky's Foundation, because who deserves it? It's, of course, Viktor Gusev, thanks to whom all those publications were born in labor, and I'm just one of the co-authors. Unfortunately, Mikhail Alexeyevich could not come to visit us. Will you pass it to him? Will you be the one who will pass it over to him? Definitely. Thank you.
Для оглашения последней
For announcing the last nomination for the Best Artistic Commentary, which is given to those critics who covered the recent occurrences, the recent times developments. I'd like to invite here the editor-in-chief of Win Zavod newspaper Art Review.
Добрый день еще раз. Я очень коротко.
Good afternoon again. I will be very brief. The person I'm going to name has gone a long way. He is very talented and he is independent. Valentin Dyakonov. Please welcome. Congratulations. And thank you so much. And it's an honor to get this prize for the first time from the Peter Konchalovsky's Foundation. Thank you to the foundation. Thanks everyone who came to participate, because that served for me as a reason to start contemplating and start reflecting. And I'd like to thank my teacher, who is, of course, much worthy of this prize than I am, because he brought me up, in a sense. Thank you so much.
А теперь мы переходим.
And now, at the last point, we decided to combine the remaining 3 sessions in our program. I mean, the last session, the closing session, the press conference, and the closing ceremony. You can ask questions now to the participants of the round table, which I kindly ask now to get up on stage to really discuss what has been done throughout those 3 days of the conference. Valentin Diakonov. You can come up on stage together with your prize. Karen Beckman, the University of Pennsylvania. Milena Orlova. Thank you so much. Nina Getashvili. Nina Getashvili wants to stay in the audience. Then I'm calling the next participant, Silvia Borini, Ca' Foscari University, together with Giuseppe Barbieri.
Julia Kagansky.
Julia Kagansky. The main curator of Museum of France, Monsieur Denis Coutagne, and the director of Peter Konchalovsky's foundation, Alexander Konov.
В качестве модератора
As a moderator of the last session, in accordance with an established tradition, I'd like to ask Valentin Diakonov to share his seat with Valentina Orlova as a symbol of a truce between a Russian critic, and Andrei Dombrovsky would also be a moderator of this session, University of Pennsylvania. And I kindly ask to switch on the mics on the podium.
Участники круглого
The participants of the roundtable have decided to sit in such a way which emphasizes the democratic character of our event. Andre?
Thank you again for the opportunity to start off a summing up of these amazing, powerful, interesting, and thrilling 3 days. It's quite a challenge, and what I think I want to say is less a summing up than a few impressions coming from, and I'll admit this first, from a foreigner who's been to Russia twice now, and so my perspective will inevitably and centrally come from such a position. All throughout the days, we've been struck by the fact how differently languages and words are employed here throughout, and that for the 3 days I've been sometimes struggling to understand perfectly the meaning of certain words like political correctness, traditions, beauty, and so on, as they definitely and no doubt signify very differently than they do for me. But what I want to say is that I've been particularly impressed and thrilled at the passion this forum has brought about on both the stage and in the audience, and this is something that I've rarely ever witnessed in the other conferences of which many I have participated in. And I want to say that I think that that's a completely healthy and beautiful state of a vital art world, contemporary art world, and an art critical world, and not at all a sign of its decadence. So I would not at all urge you to go to Italy, which has its own problems to solve, but stay here and and keep focusing on the very problems you're focusing, which are political change, social change, as they become art, can interchange with art. But what struck me also throughout the days is not just that passion of engagement, but also that a passion, and this is perhaps true in general, passion favors poetry, it favors metaphors, it favors exaggerations, it favors chanting, as we have heard. It favors the personal pronoun, right? It favors personal narratives and experiences, perhaps a little bit over more distanced, more rationalized assessments. And so what I'm offering now are perhaps two ways in which I see a lot of what's happened over the last 2-3 days. A bit of modern history and contemporary art problematics repeating itself. And first of all, I would say that I want to describe the different camps we have here slightly differently. And there's the one camp, if we want to call it that at all, that's deeply invested in the contemporary moment. What does it mean to dissect that moment, to manage that moment in its technical diversity, in its technical potential? How do we keep up with life in that moment? This is a concern that has been voiced for centuries, and I find its new iteration particularly powerful and interesting. And opposing to that, we have the believers in a decadent present, in a kind of presence that's a manifestation of loss, that's a manifestation of pasts eroding and no longer structuring that presence in a vital and fruitful and politically viable manner. Throughout, I've therefore wished a little bit, and maybe some of the participants from previous panels and previous speaker from the audience would help me in just clarifying the metaphors that were used to make these points just a bit more concretely. What does it mean for those who are interested in managing the moment, to have a past? How does that past figure there? How do you archive your blogs? How do you have a specific sense of the past while you are managing that moment? Where does the contemporary start? Which exhibitions do you not consider because you are thinking that that an artist no longer quite belongs to the contemporary moments? How are those particular decisions very concretely made that imagine a certain temporal moment of the present? And the favorers of a loss or a crisis, I would ask in return to just be a little bit more specific. I would just like to hear them voice what precise traditions they feel are lost and should be replaced, what precise beauties they are referring to, and what precise pasts, which past exactly. Because we can all agree that Russia is a country of many. Which one are they referring to? So I was hoping that maybe towards the end some of these slightly more concrete answers could replace some of the metaphors that have been floating through the conference for the past 3 days. That would be my encouragement.
So, which of you in the room wants to share what you acquired during the last 3 days? Nina, you refuse to come out to the podium. Maybe you will answer from the room, from the floor. Well, I acquired the silence of the room because it's also a symptom of today. It's also a reaction. Maybe things should settle down and then become crystallized in some conclusions. Maybe that is an immediate answer. But that fuzziness of our formulas and this hot-headedness that you noticed, is one of the concerns that I have, is that the situation cools down, that the tempers cool down. I don't call to do without the intelligence, but it's a good thing that we have live feeling people that love their art and that protect their vision of art. And if we don't have an answer now, let's see it as an current situation, which is an unformulated content of today. I will ask for a few more opinions from the room. I would ask our assistants. Astrid Money, an independent art critic, Berlin. Я бы хотела
To everybody who's been involved in this, to Dennis, who I met in Kiev, and who I re-met in Moscow, for inviting me, because I can only support what you've been saying. This has been really one of the most vivid conferences, discussions I've ever taken part in, and I feel totally infused with a new passion for what I'm doing, because I quite often sit in my lonely workspace at home and wonder, why am I doing what I'm doing? And actually, that necessity and that urgency that I felt in the discussions in this room, even if many of them I can't really follow because my understanding of the contemporary Russian art scene isn't as deep as I would like it to be, I felt the energy, and I must say I feel totally revitalized. I found this an amazing experience. And so, yeah, that's basically, apart from many things that I have learned, I go back with more questions than I had ever before. Those people who gave me cards, I will be emailing you. I will be continuing to ask questions. I would like the dialogue to continue, but more than anything else, I can say I'm currently a little bit overwhelmed with all the information in my head, and a great thanks to everybody who made this possible, for the Pyotr Konchalovsky Foundation, to the translators who had to sing to us and who kind of like had to translate two voices at the same time. So everybody in here did a great job. Thanks for everybody who talked to us, who approached us, and yeah, I'll stop it now, but a great thanks for everything.
Thank you, Astrid. Я бы предложил
I would suggest that we take turns in the opinions of the room and the opinions of the panelists. Which of the panelists would like to take the floor? Valentin Diakonov. I fully agree with you that there were a lot of metaphors and very little concrete things were said. And during these 3 very busy days, I understood what is my position as a critic and what should I counter as a critic after this day. It doesn't matter whether I agree or disagree with the words that were said by the most passionate speakers, but I do not agree with the type of mentality that generates such words. This fuzzy mentality, when people, the whole speech consists of far-fetched generations, and when the listeners who is rational finds himself in a vicious circle. For me, this was one of the main lessons of this forum. Apart from that, there is a subset of that mindset. When people, like typical Russians, only say no, there's no market, no criticism, no art, although there's the painters, the market, the critics, and the sales, but it's easier for some reason to say no. And I believe that all of us, the Russian participants and the guests, need to do away with that horrible habit of saying no and having a negative attitude to everything, because that is one of the way to dodge possible personal responsibility for what is happening, the responsibility for the current status of the market, to dodge responsibility for what you say. And if that doesn't exist, I don't have anything in common with that, and I'm not to blame for what is happening. That is not true. We all know that the world of art is a place where everything and everyone is interrelated. The critic goes to the painter's studios, talks to the gallery managers, and it's an environment where the professional division is different from the offices with cubicles, and you cannot enter somebody else's room without an invitation. There's a lot was said about those secret handshakes, secret rituals. I think that's a gross exaggerated. That because in the art world, democracy is meritocracy. If you've done something, you will get a response that you need in the long run, and that's much easier than in other communities related to big budgets and fundraising. And yes, I would like us to say no to the word no and assume responsibility for what is happening. And if that is the main conclusion for the majority of the participants, I will be very glad, because that's my conclusion. Thank you, Valentin. Thank you, Valentin. I would like to pass the floor to a person whose name was mentioned by Andrei Kovalov, by Alexander Panov, mentioned Anna Kotlar, State Tretyakov Gallery, Mass Media Relations Department. I won't be original. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizers of the forum for a great event. Certainly, the problem of modern criticism is very important. It is very important for the museum community. When we talked about the audience, I wanted to say that my colleague and myself are the audience that day after day analyzes and makes conclusions about what is published in the media, what is shown on the television, what is on the web. We came here to get some specific experience that we could share with our colleagues. We could acquire skill and information from our colleagues. We are very grateful for live communication with Jennifer and other foreign colleagues. I would like to say that we are very much interested in the press, in the criticism. We see that the press is quite different. We respect and we know personally, and we are friends with a lot of professional critics who have a fundamental education. We value their knowledge, their recommendations, and their materials, both paradoxical and acute. It's not only because their materials attract visitors to us because they bring up the public, but they also help to form even the exhibition policy, because we are trying to analyze the materials, we make conclusions, we try to influence the gallery's management, and we believe that this part of criticism must be further developed and must involve more people to their profession. Of course, we are concerned with the situation, and we try to educate the young and not very young journalists who shock us with their incompetence, who disinform the public, who because of their conceited ways level the professional work and downgrade the professional work. We were preparing a exhibition by Gay, and I talked to the journalists, and I was told by producers, the editor of the first channel, one of the editors of the first channel said, "What kind of preliminary material is possible about this exhibition? How can you imagine me allowing a text?" The exhibition of works by Nikolai Gay is being prepared. That is to do with political correctness. The lack of knowledge results in such paradoxical results when people think that we are preparing to open a gay exhibition. And sometimes a good radio station with great actors have been dealing with art for a long time, tell in their commercials that Nicholas G. Exhibition is being opened, and we welcome journalists who think, who can communicate with us, who are very thorough. We are very thankful to the forum and would like such fora to continue. Thank you. Ambassador Karen Dockman, University of Pennsylvania.
Hello, I also want to add my really heartfelt thanks, spasiba, to everybody here. You have been really generous hosts, and I think all of the people that I've been traveling with who've come from Philadelphia feel that we're tremendously privileged and lucky to have been invited to share your conversation. I feel like we've had access to a way of thinking and speaking that would be impossible for us to access by reading books or looking at Russian works of art in a museum in America. And I feel like it's been a really transformational event in terms of how I think about what's happening in Russia. It's also, this experience has reminded me that sometimes it's difficult to know what you don't know, and that you have to really actively seek out spaces that will remind you of the things that you don't know and remind you of the gaps in your knowledge so that you can try to more actively engage those spaces. And I think all of us have felt a real sense of not having all the pieces to be able to understand everything that is happening. And I appreciate the people who've tried to help us understand better. One question that I've been thinking about a lot over the course of these 3 days is the question of how the relationship between people interested in art in a space that's been described as the West can relate or should relate to people in Russia and in spaces that some people have described as the East. And I'm interested in asking you how you think that relationship can develop in a way that isn't simply people from America or Britain or Germany coming to Russia and trying to impose a certain way of exhibiting or talking about art, but something that is more two-way, where we can be critiqued by you and learn from you and join in conversations with you and offer experiences from our own situation, which is equally complicated but in really different ways. I think in America right now we're struggling with our own history and with our own sense of a place in the world and our own economy in very different ways, but in no way do we have all the answers, and I really appreciate the critiques and would welcome suggestions of how to make this conversation develop in a way that is respectful and equal and productive for both parties. So I welcome any questions or suggestions about that. But thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you, Karen. Кто еще из членов рабочей группы?
Who else of the working group could continue? Maybe Julia?
I kind of just want to echo Karen because I've been sitting here thinking about some of Konstantin's remarks about how Russian people have a tendency to say no, and no? Is that incorrect? No? And I would say that I think part of the reason we've all found this conference so refreshing is that willingness to be openly critical and to say no, and choosing to kind of put politeness aside a little bit and be openly engaged in very passionate ways. And for me, that was particularly refreshing because I often don't find that enough in the States. And I think it is important to kind of put together this middle ground where these differing perspectives and ways of doing things can be in dialogue with one another. And for me, that was one of the greatest parts about this conference, and I would like to see more of that, as you were saying, to kind of have this exchange happen more regularly, because that place where we meet in the middle hopefully will be fertile ground for new ideas to sprout out of, and will enrich both cultures, both perspectives through that exchange. And maybe we don't have those answers just yet because those seeds have just been planted, but at least having this window into the other side and the way that people are discussing these ideas and articulating what is happening and trying to forge paths forward, I think is really has been truly inspiring, and I thank everyone for sharing their ideas and for taking part. So, thanks.
Thank you, Julia. Спасибо, Julia.
Thank you, Julia. I'm giving the floor to Director of Konchalovsky Foundation, Alexander Konov. I would like to continue on what Valentin Diakonov said, and Julia, no, about saying no. You know, it's very easy to say no, I can't, it's impossible, and so on. There's sitting close to me is Monsieur Coutagne. I can ask him how much it cost him to organize an exhibition of Cézanne in Paris and what he had to pass through. Every action, every real action, every real responsibility is not achieved easily. And I can say that certainly we will continue with this forum, certainly, as in like a painter who painted one picture and cannot stop with that. We will continue. It becomes an addiction of a sort. So thanks to everyone who participated, all the guests of our forum. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you, Alexander. I would like now to pass the floor to the people of a profession to whom our forum, for whose sake our forum was organized, to the painters. I have 3 young painters that organized this, who made that exhibition. Only Victoria Belenkova participated in it, and her friends were helping her. The All-Russian Cinematography University. I don't think we'll find other participants of the exhibition. There are curators. Oh, there are painters. Yes, great. Guys, very briefly, what, how, and why? First, it was very pleasant for me to get an invitation to participate in this forum. I'm deeply honored. Secondly, to hear and to see so many interesting and people who are authorities in the world of art. This is incredibly pleasant. I'm very glad that I was here and spent 3 very exciting days here with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I thank the Piotr Konchalovsky Fund. It was very interesting. There were a lot of new things, new knowledge, new friends, and this provided an impetus to my deliberations, to looking at your own creative work and to thinking of how to find your own place in modern art. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me, for the possibility to see the pieces of art and to hear people who understand so much about art. I got answers to many of my questions, and even more questions arose, and that inspires me and helps me to develop further. I hope that this forum will continue, and I will have an opportunity to participate in it again and to hear something new. We have more people in this room. Quite recently, I started reading the Hype book, and only 10% of professional Western artists, I don't know whether she meant America or Europe, that had worked in their professions, remain in the professions. 90% become something else like taxi drivers or office workers. The situation in Ukraine is different. About 60 to 70% of the artists remain in art. If they cannot make money with art, they go to advertisement, teaching, murals, and things like that. But they stay with art. I don't understand why. And here in this forum, I understood that there is a difference in mentality, in education that we get. And there is a difference even in the content of visual arts. Because Russian has the word visual arts. And in Ukrainian, it sounds like an image art. And in even lexically, the notion, classical definition of art is closer to us, and the same relates to the word modern and actual, because here at this forum, I'm very grateful to all the opportunities of international collaboration that arose, and I'm really excited by Denis's professionalism. He is both the moderator and by the high level of foreign experts whom we met here. And I would add of the whole fund in general. Monsieur Coutain? I would like to say one word about the objectives of art, not necessarily modern or actual. When I listen to Stravinsky, to the Sacred Spring, it seems to me that I hear modern music that actually blows up all the cultural codes. When I look at Cézanne, I see someone who has renovated the outlook of an apple of a human body, has a very fresh look. When I look at some modern art, I also see something codified, and the access to this code is approach to this code is very academic. I hear some conversations here. If there's no risk for classical art, and if we treat people who share Dostoevsky's words that beauty will say the world, though it's not quite clear what he wanted to say. And there is provocations like Duchamp's provocation, who exhibited Renoir in an exhibition hall that he called the Fountain. And certainly you could participate in that process and even generate added value. And just like Jeff Koons in the Museum of Versailles provokes the Paris bourgeoisie, who shout that he has desecrated Versailles. Maybe that is the function. Maybe modern art should enable us to see what an artist is seeking in modern art. Sometimes the painters intuitively feel the rhythm of modern world, and we, the critics, must see and hear those ideas and those challenges and those ideas. And that's what I felt throughout this. And thank you for inviting me.
Alexander Kilipenko, I'm the member of an International Journalists Federation, and I also publish an artistic almanac, St. Petersburg. When Andrei Konchalovsky visited this forum, in his address to the audience, he said that at present the classical music died out. At one point in time, Andrei Severyanin told everyone that around us are only idiots and cretins. But to my mind today, classical poets have died out. And sitting at this forum, I heard that there's Mexican language, and out of the young people who spoke at this conference, I heard that they possess only weak education, very weak education. And there's only one thought that I will remember. Unfortunately today, this river of Styx is being crossed now by the classical art, by painting. This is my pessimistical approach. Can I answer to that rebuttal?
Простите, пожалуйста.
I'm very sorry, but I would like to speak here. Can I be a devil's advocate, and I can say no to that, that there is painting, there is high art, there are people who may not be professionals, of course, and who can still behave as professionals, but Mr. Diakonov here told us, and I think quite for a reason, that always, starting from the ancient times, everybody was nagging about the humanity is dying out and surviving through crisis and something like that. And today, what we heard here can only evoke optimism. Of course, there are certain challenges, but the opinions were voiced in here, and they were not presentations, because almost half of what we heard here were improvisations, and everybody who spoke, he wanted to get some confirmation of his thoughts or some arguments to his thoughts or opinion. He wanted to be involved in a discussion, or she wanted to be involved in a discussion. You can't negate everything only by one word, by one diagnosis. You cannot negate the modern state of art. Yes, definitely, we've got blank spots on our map, but you can have a look how many talented, how many bright and rigorous people who want to live in this art world. They're not just trends. They're people. They're sitting in front of you, looking into your face. And this forum is a sort of a snapshot of the situation in general. And there were many different opinions, many different ideas, and I would like to thank all the participants. It's an extreme pleasure for me that, as one of the co-organizers of the forum, this forum was very useful for me. It's not a point of bifurcation or trifurcation or quadrifurcation. It's the point where many paths erupt from. Nicholas Cullen, Tate Morin.
I just wanted to say one thing at this point, which is that the comment we've heard about, culture coming to an end or somehow reaching an impasse isn't a new standpoint. That's been said throughout the ages. It's kind of a cliche. And I just very briefly had a look at the Hermitage Museum, which has this wonderful collection of paintings from the old masters through to people like Matisse. And I think it's worth bearing in mind that as much as we might look at a painter like Matisse now as some kind of apex of high culture, as a painter, in his own period he was decried and he was labeled a charlatan. So I think it's important to remember that there's always been this hostility to modern and contemporary art. So culture doesn't die, it carries on. It just changes.
Сильвия Бурини. Сильвия, вы хотели слово?
Silvia Burini, you wanted to say something. Yes, I'm also very grateful. We, an Italian delegation, we probably had a different perception of the situation in general, not like Americans, because this Russian culture is closer to us. To me in particular, because I've been in Russia for 25 years already, and I don't feel alienated, even vice versa. It's even easier for me to speak about that, and I believe it is very important that this forum serves as the place to meet. They're different people. We are professors. We have a different point of view. We are not bloggers. We are not artists. But to me personally, it was extremely interesting to have a look at how students, art students and bloggers respond to what they see. Because we as professors, we work with students. And we don't really understand how our students today think about criticism and by which means they're able to express their opinions, like the internet. If we are not capable of understanding that, we wouldn't be able to teach. We can't do that very well, and we won't be able to train skilled art critics. And the academy, academic teachers could not teach artists if they don't know it. It's not an academic conference. That's why I was not talking to my colleagues only. I was not limited to that. We were having a larger discussion that involved people from many areas of the art world. It's a very saturated, it's a very interesting discussion. Because when we have a difference of opinion, it only helps us to get to know others. As Mr. Lotman says, you're only able to understand yourself through an alien, through a foreign person, through a different person. And I think this forum has served as a treasure for us all. Giuseppe Barbieri. I would like to add a couple of points. First, I don't think that we're living through a specific moment of crisis in arts. Every week, every day, art is being discussed in the world. There are certain events, there are certain occurrences. And it means that the art goes on, it lives on. And people meet and discuss that. The first objective for us is to really understand and to involve those people who do not leave this world, leave this life, who just observe it from outside. 100 years ago, or even more than that, 120 or 30 years ago, art historians who served as art critics at the same time, those of them who studied modern art, they managed to find out in their magazines a very specific system of organizing and conducting meetings and conversations. Magazines started serving as a venue. Today, means of communications have changed. In order to communicate in a more effective and efficient way, not just to have an exchange of opinion, we need to organize it in a little bit different way. We need to launch a set of initiatives that will be able to attract the whole world to this discussion. Now, there's an exhibition somewhere that shows the history of art exhibitions, starting from first Biennale. Today in the world, there are more than 100 of different biennales. It's not an event or something that happens within one country only. It's an attribute of our global world. And preserving this knowledge is something that we need to do in our universities. In our universities, we need to provide our students an opportunity to use those new tools and instruments. But we shouldn't forget that we have to fill their gaps in their backgrounds. We shouldn't forget that. We need to bear this in mind. We shouldn't forget what happened 80, 100, or 120 years ago, not just to keep this knowledge, but to remember that history goes in cycles, it's repeating itself. And if something happened like that in the history, and we see that it's happening now, we'll be better understanding it. Now the floor is given to the head of the editorial department of an arts magazine. I agree with Valentin Diakon that we need to go away from theoretizing, and we need to come back to practical things. I would like to express my deep gratitude to Russian art critics, those of them who are present in here and many others whom we know and whom we love. Yes, very often we are not communicating that easily. We might have some disagreements, but we still wish you all successes. Criticizing critics, I think it's the best thing we can do here, but while you are visiting our exhibitions, while you are reviewing them, while you are writing your texts, and while somebody is still publishing and reading those texts, it all has some sense. So thank you so much for doing it. And I think that the most logical answer to that would be the words of Yelena Orlova. Please, you're welcome. Thank you. Samantha Kalp, Red Books Studio, Shanghai.
Yeah, I just want to also kind of echo all of these closing remarks, that this is such an honor to be here. And I really had no idea what to expect, and it's been surprising and revealing and much better than I ever really could have expected. I feel like this has definitely re-inspired me about just the project of art criticism and art, dealing with art in written and online platforms. And it's been so amazing to exchange with my colleagues from all over the world here. I hope to take a lot of this back to Beijing and Shanghai, where I work, and contribute to that community there. I wish also, people could come share more of your knowledge there and continue the exchange. Thank you very much.
I'd like to say that in 2 days I'm going to Miami for Art Basel Miami Beach. And I will be reminded how little most of the art market cares about criticism. This conference is what's going to help me live through that. The discussions we've had here and the energy and in some cases actual anger that I've seen here reminds me that there is something at stake, and that what we do is important in the formation of culture and how we see and how we live. And I'd like to say thank you.
Will Brandt, главный редактор портала ArtFact City.
Will Brandt, editor-in-chief of ArtFact City portal. Alexander, your word. Are you ready for the concluding remarks? We will fix that. Thank you. Once again, I would like to thank all the participants, and as a question addressed to all the audience here, I would like to ask your opinion. For your opinion, please give us your feedback on our website. One of the possible topics for the next forum would be curatorship. Do you think will it be interesting for the public? Well, you can send us all your wishes and comments, and we're ready to cooperate with everyone who is interested in working with us. Thank you. And I just would like to remind you that as the moderator of this forum, we had Anastasia Volkova, Art.ru Agency, and Denis Bilkevich, Peter Konchalovsky Foundation. Thanks to everyone.